Welcome to another EDH deck tech. This is my Liliana Heretical Healer deck. This one is my baby. Like a lot of people, this started out as a Liliana story tribal deck with all the cards that have Liliana in the name, or the art, or the flavor text. Ultimately, that wasn't particularly very powerful. So then I transitioned to a zombie tribal deck, and that was fun for a bit, but it got a bit boring, and I changed that to a Scarab God deck. And essentially what I enjoyed was just playing with strong black cards. So I've kind of upped the power level on this deck. I do have one deck building restriction in that it does contain all non-Planeswalker deck Liliana Planeswalkers. Essentially, I don't particularly like the Planeswalker deck Lilianas, but I do have all the other ones. So there are 9 other Planeswalkers in this deck. So this deck is all about black control. So I want to sacrifice my own creatures so that I can flip Liliana, and then when I flip Liliana, I want to be discarding and trying to hit emblems. Essentially how this deck will go. So we'll start off first with the Liliana Planeswalkers. So first, Liliana Vess. It's mainly here just to tutor, put something on top of my deck with its -2. Quite nice. Liliana of the Dark Realms. This one will go search for swamps. I have a lot of swamps in this deck. I have some cards that require the amount of swamps, so it's good for going and getting some swamps. Liliana the Veil, my favorite. This one's nice and cheap and starts the discarding of cards, as well as sacrificing some creatures. Liliana Death's Majesty. This one's okay. It fills the graveyard, gives me some blockers. It can also return a creature from the graveyard, which is quite nice. So this one's pretty decent. Liliana Untouched by Death. I don't have too many zombie payoffs in this deck. So this is probably the worst of the Lilianas. If it wasn't for that deck building restriction, this wouldn't make the cut. As I'm not going to get too much value out of this, but returning a zombie from the graveyard, I do have some zombies, so it can be nice. Liliana Dreadhorde General, it goes in pretty much every black deck that I make. Great, it draws cards, makes blockers, sacrifice creatures, and the ult is pre-game winning. So everything that I want to do in this deck. Liliana Waker of the Dead. This is like just a little bit more expensive Liliana the Veil. Does very similar things, and Liliana the Veil is pretty good. So one that you have to pay a little bit extra is also decent. Liliana the Last Hope, nice and cheap. It can fill the graveyard, get something back, take out some mana dorks, things like that. But sometimes I will try to go for the ult as soon as possible. The ult's pretty game winning. So if I turn one Dark Ritual into this, people are still setting up their boards, don't really have a lot of attackers to bring it down. So, sometimes you can rush the ult. And the reason I'm making this video is for the new Liliana Planeswalker, Professor Onyx. Don't tell anyone, it's actually Liliana. Magecraft is nice. I don't have too many instants of sorceries or any copy effects, so you get a little bit of value. The +1 is okay. The -3 is also okay. It's just a generally okay. It's probably a little bit too expensive mana-wise, but it is a Liliana Planeswalker card, and so it's in here. Okay, next is Sacrifice Outlets. I want to be able to sacrifice creatures so that I can flip my Liliana. So first up, Carrion Feeder. It can just sacrifice itself. So sometimes I'll play this if I can, turn 1, get Liliana out on turn 3, and then just sacrifice itself so that I can flip Liliana and start the discarding and start the upticking of loyalty. So really nice. Viserious here, very similar thing. Try to get it out as early as possible. Can sacrifice to itself, but normally Scry 1's quite nice, so I'll try to keep that one around. But again, a nice cheap creature to get Liliana to flip. Ashnod's Altar. you know, pretty stable when it comes to sacrifice outlets. Make 2 colorless mana. Great because I have some X spells in here. Phyrexian Altar, very similar. Sacrifice a creature, add 1 mana of any color. Great with Gravecrawler, which will be coming up. Yeah, really great card. And then Yawgmoth, Thrive Position. This one's great. I draw a card when I sacrifice a creature, which is fantastic. But also I can pay 2 and discard a card to proliferate. So I have 10 Planeswalkers in this deck, including my commander. So, you know, I proliferate's quite a nice ability, as well as, you know, protection from humans. Gravecrawler, I can bring it out. So this starts the creatures that can kind of come back. So Gravecrawler, first one, goes infinite with Phyrexian Altar. So that's nice. I just need another zombie. Like I said, I don't have too many zombies. Some of my Planeswalkers will make zombies. So I do have to, you know, make sure that I have it online. It does go infinite in this deck, but it requires a bit of work. So I'm usually okay with that. Bloodghast, another 2/1 that kind of comes back with landfall. So I just have to have a land. I'm hopefully making land drops every turn. So, you know, this coming back, it's fantastic. Another trader, another similar one, has haste and shadow, not really too relevant, but I can pay 1 to bring it back to the battlefield. And the most staple of staples, Reassembling Skeleton, you know, comes back for 2 mana. Do note that all these creatures that I've just shown all have 1 toughness, which becomes relevant later. So next is Reanimation. So it's a black deck, so having some nice Reanimation. I haven't gone too deep on it. I have some big creatures that I would like to reanimate, but there's still a lot of small stuff. So just having 1 or 2 is quite nice. So Reanimate, super cheap, cost 1, and you just pay life, which is nice. And Animate Dead, very similar. It's nice that it's an enchantment. It you know, goes for devotion, adds to devotion, so that's quite nice. It brings back something back for nice and cheap. So Entomb, I want to put stuff in the graveyard. This is instant speed, so it's great. You know, turn 1, I just, you know, Entomb for like a Bloodghast or something, and just start getting that cheap creature that I can keep bringing back, and start that train rolling, so I can sacrifice it to flip Lily. Buried Alive, very similar, but it gets 3 creatures. So normally I'll put in something like a Bloodghast or Reassembling Skeleton, and then 2 big creatures that I would want to reanimate later on. So it's quite nice. Okay, draw. Skull Clamp, great, super cheap to equip. You get 2 cards. It is +1, -1. So a lot of my cheap creatures that I'm bringing back are 1 toughness. So, you know, really, really good. With that, if I can get this and one of the cheap ones, then, you know, I'll be drawing cards and flipping Liliana. So, fantastic. Knight's Whisper, just cheap, 2 mana for 2 cards and lose 2 life. You know, fantastic. Sign in Blood, very similar. This one does target player. So if somebody's, you know, milling themselves out, you could target them, I guess. But usually I'm targeting myself. Again, 2 mana for 2 cards, great value. Necropotence, really, really good. So it does have 3 black, so sometimes you can turn 1 dark ritual for this. Super nice. I would consider myself a value Necropotence player, so I usually just draw up to my hand size, but you know, that's still great value. So super good. Phyrexian Arena. This one's sometimes in the deck, sometimes out. So it's a bit slow. It is nice it's an enchantment and that it has 2 black pips in it, so it's good for devotion. But if I draw this late game, it's, you know, a bit upsetting. So you can swap this out for another draw spell if you like. Geth's Grimoire. So this card, yeah, is really good. It's essentially Siphon Mind. So whenever an opponent discards a card, you will draw a card. And if you have 3 opponents, that's, you know, Siphon Mind. And a lot of my Liliana Planeswalkers discarded cards, so you know, you'll get some nice value. It is expensive at 4, but it's repeatable, so it's good. Bolus of Citadel. This thing is a powerhouse. You just go through your deck. Try not to play lands out of your hand if you have this, just so that if you do hit a land, you can play it. So try to do that, and if you hit a second land, well, yeah, try to shuffle, I guess. But work on some life gain when you've got this, but you'll churn through a lot of cards, so fantastic. Villas, Broker of Blood, one of my favorite creatures. You can pay life, and every time you pay life or lose life, you'll draw 2 cards. So with this, you'll activate and you'll draw 2 cards. If you do reanimate this out of your graveyard, you will draw 8 cards because it costs 8. So really, really good to just draw a lot of cards. Fantastic. Okay, next is tutors. I have a lot of valued lands. So Expedition Map's great. You pay 1, and then you tap it and pay 2 to search for a land. Put that in your hand. So, you know, I want to start getting some big mana and have some great lands that I want to get. So it's fantastic. Vampiric Tutor. This card is really great. It's card disadvantage, but it's still that good. So I want to be searching for my library for win conditions. So fantastic. Demonic Tutor, classic. Search a library. You know, I'll go for win conditions, soul rings, whatever. You know, whatever I need. Diabolic Intent. So this is Demonic Tutor, but I have to sacrifice a creature, which is what I want to be doing. So sometimes this is even better. If I can get Liliana, get a creature out, then Diabolic Intent, flip my Liliana, get whatever card I want, and then start the Liliana train. Fantastic. Razaketh, the Foul-Blooded, another creature that I absolutely love. It is a sack outlet, which is kind of nice, but when you've got this out, you would have probably, you know, flipped Liliana by then, hopefully. But essentially, it can be done at instant speed to sacrifice, so I'll sacrifice at the end of my opponent's turn, before my turn, and just have a handful of cards, the exact cards I want. Fantastic. Okay, ramp. So Dark Ritual. You know, put 3 in your mana pool. I have a lot of black pips, a lot of 3 mana cards. I usually will not Dark Ritual for Liliana on turn 1 because I need a lot of setup to get a sack outlet and a creature. But Dark Ritual, one of your Planeswalkers, Dark Ritual, Necropotence, you know, fantastic. Sol Ring, classic. Arcane Signet, another classic. 2 mana rocks are great. So I've got a few. So Arcane Signet will tap for black. Fellwhite Stone, you will usually have an opponent that taps for black, else you can consider it colorless. You know, it's going to tap for something. But you will usually get black arrows. Jet Medallion makes everything cheaper. We're going to be churning out spells. Fantastic. Mind Stone taps for colorless, but I can draw late game. Thought Vessel. The no maximum hand size is okay. If I reanimate a Villas, it's nice to have. Or if I have a Necropotence, it's nice to have. But yeah. Pitiless Plunderer. So I'm sacrificing creatures. So you know I want to get some value out of that. Some additional value. So getting some treasure is really good. Cryptghast. I play a lot of swamps in this deck. So doubling up is fantastic. And the Extort is quite nice. You get a little bit of life gain, which is good. Okay, removal. Feed the Swarm. Great removal. Sorcery. Flexible. Target creature or enchantment. You know, there wasn't many enchantment destruction effects for black. So it's quite nice to have. If somebody's got like a Ristic Study or something out there that's annoying, you can definitely get rid of it, or like a Sphere of Safety and you can't attack, or whatever the case is. So just a bit of flexibility. It's a pity that's sorcery, but at 2 mana, I feel it's okay. Force of Despair. This one I've been liking, actually. So you do have to exile a card from your hand, a black card, but you can get people, especially if somebody's kind of going off for a turn. You can get them. You can 2-for-1 opponents. So you play this card, you have to exile a card, and you can get 4 creatures. So if an opponent's going off, this is a nice little gotcha, which I've enjoyed. Baleful Mastery, this is something I'm trying out. I've actually quite liked it. For its unkicked cost, I guess it's 2 mana to exile a target creature or planeswalker. So a lot of versatility. It's nice that it's exiles, and you give an opponent a card. You don't have to give the one that you exiled the controller. So you can just give it to an opponent that's probably going to lose next turn, or is behind, or you need to make an ally. Or you just feel sorry for the person that you exiled their permanent. So, you have a bit of politics with that. So it's quite nice. Yeah, just like it being cheap. Deadly Rollick, it's free. It exiles target creature. Yeah, fantastic. My Planeswalker Liliana tends to stay around, so this will be free a lot. Grave Pact, fantastic. I'm sacrificing creatures, so they are dying. So, each of my opponents will sacrifice, which is great to control the board. And Dictator Variable, same thing with Flash. Sometimes, you get them with it. Okay, so board wipes. Toxic Deluge, fantastic, super cheap, and you just have to pay life, and it will get around indestructible creatures. So, great. Damnation, classic, nice, 4 mana. Destroys all creatures. And Mutilate. -1/-1 for all the swamps I control. I have a lot of swamps, again, that synergize for Cryptghast, for instance. So, this will often be -6, -6, -8, -8. By the time you want to wipe the board, it can be quite a lot. Okay, now I've just got some black kind of staples, some value creatures, things like that. So Blood Artist, nice and cheap, a little bit of life gain, which is nice, and start pinging my opponents. Waste Not. Waste Not's kind of like gets Grimoire in that it works off your opponent's discards, and I'm going to get some values. This is like even tutorable. It's really good. If I can set up my Liliana to discard, then this is really, really great. You get a lot of value out of this, and you can get a blocker as well, which is always nice. Ophiomancer. So Ophiomancer creates a Death Touch snake, which really deters your opponents from attacking your planeswalkers. So I found that really nice, because essentially they're gonna have to get rid of. They're gonna have to attack me with 2 things. It's gonna have to have enough power to take out my planeswalker, and you're going to lose one of them, and then I'm just going to make another snake. I don't play any other snakes, so this will trigger unless my opponents can give me a snake. But yeah, really good. Now the token does not flip Liliana, so if it dies, you're not going to flip your Liliana, but it's just great to deter people. Opposition Agent, really strong. You're going to control while they're searching, so this might be something that you Dark Ritual out on turn 1 when someone fetches. Make sure your play group is at that kind of level, but you're going to get people, and then you're going to be made enemy number 1. So yeah, play at your own will. So Conrad the Grim, creatures, a lot of creatures will be dying, going in and out of graveyards. It is a bit slow. I'm going to be getting 1 damage here and there, but it's going to start pinging my opponents for my eventual win cons. So getting people down, a few more damage is quite nice, as well as you can mill someone's vamp tutored target, for instance. So which is always quite nice. So yeah, this does go infinite with Gravecrawler and Phyrexian Altar. So yeah, keep that in mind. It's quite nice. Tergrid, got a fright. I'm going to be sacrificing things, so my opponents will sacrifice things. I have a lot of discard on my planeswalkers, so you are going to get some value on this. It is a modal card, so there is Turgid's Lantern on the other side, but I don't really play it on that side. Very powerful. Again, like Opposition Agent, check that your group is at this kind of level. Mikaeus the Unhollowed. Just nice value. My creatures get undying, so they keep coming back, which is just nice. If I'm going to go for a big turn for a win con, I might want to sacrifice for mana to Ashnod's Altar, for instance. So it's nice you can double up on those creatures, as well as deter people, because I'm just going to get my creatures back. So the big one. Crick, Son of Yawgmoth, turns everything into Phyrexian mana, so I don't mind paying some life to start ramping out. So really good. A little bit of life gain, but this becomes kind of enemy number one. But I have a lot of black pips, so start churning out cards quite easily with this. Sheoldred, Whispering One, huge beater. This might be something that I would bury alive so that I can reanimate. So I want to control the board by making my opponent sacrifice creatures and then bring back one of my creatures, which is always kind of nice. Okay, win cons. So Grey Merchant of Asphodel. I have a lot of black pips, a lot of black permanents. So Devotion's great, life gain's great. So with the incidental Blood Artist Sir Conrad damage, you get, people are going to be at 20 life, and then, you're going to finish them off with a 20 Devotion Grey Merchant, so it's nice. And my favorite card, Torment of Hailfire, just huge card. This is generally how I win. I will tutor for this, and then, X. Last night was 21. So, quite nice. And now lands. So you play a lot of swamps, but you do play a few utility games. So Ancient Tomb, great to get some ramp out. Paducah Bog, Graveyard Hate, you always need it. So Cabal Coffers, the big card. This is why I play so many swamps. Just because I want to get this out. When you have 3 swamps, this essentially is net neutral. And then you're going to get more from that, because you're going to definitely have more swamps. So fantastic. Expedition map will go for this usually. Yeah. Or I'll tutor for it if I can. Cabal Stronghold, baby sibling of Cabal Coffers. Do note that this one is basic swamps. So it will not work on anything that gets turned into a swamp. So keep that in mind. You do have to have 4 other swamps for it to be net neutral, and 5 to start netting you mana. So yeah, be mindful it's basic swamps. But still, late game, getting that 1 or 2 extra swamps is fantastic. Or being able to tap for 3 generic. So I have 3 utility lands that I can tap, and they will turn into black mana, which is kind of nice as well. High Market. The important thing is here, this sacrifices a creature, so it's nice. It's a land. It doesn't cost me anything. I'll play this after I played Liliana, just to sacrifice a creature to flip my Liliana. So I found this to be great. Nixos, trying to Nix, just like Grey Merchant of Asphodel. I have a lot of devotion, so this will tap for a large amount of mana. Phyrexian Tower. This one sacrifices a creature, so like High Market, it's fantastic, but this one is even better in that it gets me 2 mana in my mana pool. So, and black mana, which is nice. Strip Mine. I always play at least 1 kind of land destruction. I don't play any kind of mass land destruction, but having a land that can destroy a land is quite nice. Depending on the budget, this would either be a Ghost Quarter or a Strip Mine. But, you're going to have opponents that are playing Cirrus Sanctum, Gaia's Cradle, Field of the Dead, whatever, right? So, having 1 and that I can tutor with Expedition Map is always relevant. And Urborg, so this turns all lands into a swamp, so including your opponents. One of the best lands in the deck. I do sometimes get opponents ask if if it's worth running this, and it definitely is. Even the fact of turning my Cabal coffers into a swamp means that it's going to count itself as a swamp. Mutilate will check how many swamps I have, and Crypt Gas will also check how many swamps I have. So even just turning the small amount of utility lands into swamps is very valuable. So great addition. And the rest are just swamps. You play a lot of swamps. Again, you need to fulfill that basic swamp count for Cabal Stronghold, as well as hitting those pips. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed.